see Fedora. Oh, here we go.
Everyone's in here now.
How about this?
There you go. Like
Or should I be that?
Yes, Zorro. You are the Zorro.
Okay,
Of
I'll be
watercolor.
Zorro today.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
All
I
right.
really love it.
Our friends are
Suits you.
in the room already. Hi, Elisa.
Hello. We have
Hello,
here a Zorro.
All right, everyone, just make sure that you are in English channels so that you will hear the conversation all throughout. Hi, Mark. Okay, John, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. Behind this mask is John. So good to see all of you today. Today, we're going to go over Rajat's dot card. And I brought a bunch of watercolor sticks, so I'm going to look at those today as well. I'm going to go to Facebook and start the Facebook up. There we go. Watch live. To Facebook and start the Facebook up. Just a second. Okay. And then all right. So I'm going to turn, I think a better way for me to do this, at least to show you these, if you look at it from my perspective, it should be just fine. There. And then I'll turn the camera around when I do the.
John, it is perfect.
Okay. So let's think how I do that. Okay, so this is Rajat's dot card. And these are his colors. Let me bring that down some more so you can see it.
We'll also be sharing the link to Rajat's dot card in Zoom and in Facebook.
So hello, Mark. Hello, Elisa. I think I can hear everybody on. There we go. Hello, Claudia. Hello, Patty. Okay, Stella. So the colors that we have here, because I don't know how well you can see them. I know it's a little blurry. So we have cobalt teal blue we're going to be looking at today, Bloodstone, Piemontite, Hematite burnt scarlet, Sedona genuine, Pyrrole scarlet, Yavapai, Purpurite, Hematite, Moon glow, Kyanite, Zoisite, Diopside genuine, Sugilite, Tiger's Eye genuine, Minnesota pipestone, Lapis lazuli, Mayan blue, permanent orange, red jasper, and Payne's gray. So on Rajat's card, huge amount of Primitex. So for those of you that haven't used Primitex or might want to have questions about them, Rajat would be a perfect person to ask tomorrow because he uses quite a few of these in his artwork. And I'm going to be showing you the big swatches too. So you'll be able to see kind of what they look like and what I just called each one. For example, the moon glow, etc. Okay, so I'm going to read you the story about Rajat. Rajat will be with us tomorrow. Rajat's from India, and Rajat is a graduate from the Government College of Arts and Crafts in Calcutta, 1990. Rajat was an advertising professional till 2011. That's when he decided to pursue full-time painting and had a burning desire to revive watercolors in India. Often considered a relatively easy medium, watercolors is one of the toughest mediums to work with, and Rajat has well mastered this. Watercolor remains his forte, and he likes to capture the nature, landscapes, abandoned objects through his works. Rajat will like to preserve nature. In today's world, nature is gradually perishing, and he likes to retain its beauty and essence through his watercolor paintings. He wants watercolors to be established as an iconic medium in the arts. Rajat is the country leader of Fabriano Aquarelle in India since 2016. He's led many workshops, demonstrations, group and solo exhibitions, and art tours across cities in India, Bangladesh, Italy, Bulgaria, Greece, Thailand, and Nepal, to name a few. He works out of his studio in New Delhi, India, and his information is also online. So if you want to go to his website, you can go to his website as well. Okay, I'm going to flip this. Hello, Reba. Hello, Stella. Flip this around. Hopefully I'm not getting anybody eye aches. There we go. Fix this up. So the thought I would do is just show you some of the colors we talked about. So this one, this is Moon Glow. So Moon Glow, Moon Glow. This is a wash. It's 1 to 10. It's 1 part paint to 10 parts distilled water. So this is a wash, and this is just a graduated wash. 1 to 10. So Moon Glow, and Moon Glow is made from ultramarine blue, Viridian, and anthracoid red. And I know I put it in here because I wanted to show you. No, that's Power Scarlet. These cards stick together. Power Scarlet. And if you're on Zoom, you can certainly ask me questions. I enjoy the questions. Well, it's one of those things. I had it and I right here, from the bottom. There we go. So Moon Glow. Moon Glow is made up of anthracoid red, Viridian, and ultramarine blue. So these three colors are Moon Glow. That's why it has this reddish cast to it. If it was ultramarine blue and Viridian and pyrrole orange, it would be shadow violet and it would have a slight orange tinge to it. So the other colors that Rajat uses, he uses Kyanite. So this is Kyanite. Very granulating color. You can see some of the sparkle, and that's from the other minerals associated with Kyanite. This is diopside. It's a Primatech. Renee, hello in California. No, I'm not a burglar. I'm in I would never have guessed that would be colors in Moon Glow. So Allison, yep. This is Mayan Blue Genuine. Another one of his colors, and we'll paint each one of them out. Another one of his is Hematite Burnt Scarlet. And this is Hematite. Hematite Burnt Scarlet. This is Hematite. He uses Lapis. One of his other colors is Payne's Gray. And I'm often asked, well, there's another color of Payne's gray, and that's Payne's blue gray. So I brought that out so you can see both of them. Payne's blue gray, a little darker than Payne's gray. And you can see in here when you compare the graduated drawdown, kind of what they look like. Similar. Payne's gray a little lighter. Payne's gray, Payne's blue gray. So if you wanted to, you can ask Rajat why he chose one over the other. It may be that he has both. There's only 18 dots on the card. He uses way more colors than that. So this is Purp. Purp. You might want to ask me about Purp. I don't know if any of you have that on your palettes. This is Yavapai. Yavapai and Yavapai and Sedona. This is Sedona, and this is Yavapai. Sedona is in Yavapai County. These are both from Arizona. Yavapai is very close to the Grand Canyon, and this is Red Rock Country, Sedona. So again, pretty close to the Grand Canyon. So if you look at the hillsides in Sedona, this is what you're seeing. And Grand Canyon, Yavapai, this is what you're seeing. So this is the color of the Grand Canyon.
John, there's
Yes.
a request here from Therese, just so she and the rest can take note of the names of the colors. Maybe for just a couple of seconds, we can stack the swatches like one row. There's a message from Therese there. Could you stack the swatches so we can see the color to one side and the names at the bottom? Or we can do that. Yeah, there.
I'll adjust the camera.
There you go. Move to the left a bit.
What I'll do is I'll just do 3 and then I'll move it over and I'll do another. I'll just put 3. I'll just do 3 at a time and do it on top of each other because there's not a lot of room on my surface. So Purp, Lapis, Hematite, Payne's gray, Payne's blue gray, Payne's gray, Payne's gray, Payne's blue gray. Hematite burnt scarlet. Kyanite. Diopside. Mayan blue. Moon glow, which is ultramarine, viridian, and anthracite red. So this is these 3. Sedona, Yavapai. This is Piemontite. When we were in Portugal, Piemontite was very popular. In fact, it sold out in probably the first hour because it looks a lot like the roofs in Portugal. We were in Porto, Portugal. It's very pretty, very, very, very pretty. This is Bloodstone. It's another hematite. Bloodstone is an iron oxide group. Minnesota pipestone. Minnesota pipestone comes from Minnesota, state in the US, and it's actually where they made peace pipes. And the interesting thing about minerals in general is you can follow Lapis, which is from Chile, and watch it travel from South America to North America. So you can actually watch trade groups, and you can actually see Minnesota pipestone, which is North American, go to South America. So it's an interesting way to figure out where trade groups were, trade routes were. This is tiger's eye. This is tiger's eye genuine. It's not on Rajat's card, but the burnt tiger's eye would just be the tiger's eye put into a furnace at 700 degrees to change the oxidation state, and it would be much more red. It'd be red tiger's eye, or tiger's eye burnt. He uses zoisite. Zoisite's a very, very pretty mineral. Again, great granulation. And we talked about granulation at some length. Granulation is differential specific gravity. So some things that weigh more than others, and it's how it goes down the valleys of the paper. If this were hot press paper, so like a regular sheet of paper, this is hot press. There's no valleys to it. It's just flat. If you put the color here, it would just go out radially. So there's no valley for it to follow, but it's still going to granulate. So I'll show you that as well. I'll have to get some hot press paper. This is Sugilite. So Sugilite. And this color is actually from India. If you've been to India, you'll see in a lot of the temples, almost everywhere, it's red jasper. Very, very, very ubiquitous all over India. Okay. So any questions you have on any of those? And I brought all the tubes. We're gonna paint them all out. Okay. And one of his last colors that is on the dot card is going to be the Pyrrole Scarlet. And we'd expect it, because it's a pyrrole, we'd expect it to be very bright. So he has cobalt teal blue, the Pyrrole Scarlet, the permanent orange, and the Payne's gray are the only non-Primatech on Rajat's card. He uses a lot of Primatechs. Which I think when you'll see his artwork tomorrow, he does a lot of paintings of rocks, etc. So he uses Primatechs to do that. So Sue says, is Kyanite the only one that's glittery? No, it's not. So Lapis has mica inside of it, so it's going to have can have a slight glitter to it. The other ones would be bronzite and burnt bronzite, and to an extent amethyst. So anything with mica. So these show it soup very, very readily. This is Fuchsite. This is red Fuchsite, and you can see it's loaded with mica. Just loaded with it. And then this is its counterpart. This is green Fuchsite. Again, loaded with mica. And this is Kyanite, which we're going to look at in a moment. And if I turn it to the sides, you can see it's very reflective. It won't have anywhere near the mica that this has right here, but it's still reflective. And Lapis will have a little bit, but it still has it. Okay. Now let's look at some of Rajat's colors. Lapis. So Sugilite, Sugilite would be another one. We'll see that here in a second. Thank you, Stella. So Moonglow is very popular. All right, so we're going to look at Lapis, red jasper, Sugilite, Payne's gray, Sedona, Moonglow, Piemontite, and Minnesota pipestone first. Excuse me. So I'll put two colors down, and then this it'll be able to focus. It's hard, has a hard time with all this white surface. So this one's going to be Lapis. And I'm going to focus in just a second. And this one will be red jasper. So let's see if that comes in focus. There we go. So the red jasper is going to granulate. I get lots of questions about the, yes, it takes at least two colors before it'll focus. Otherwise, it has to go against all this white space. That's my theory anyway. So the lapis, I get asked a lot of questions about the lapis. You know, why is it so bright? Shouldn't it be a lot darker? And this is about 80% pure lapis right here. Lapis one's extremely expensive. So when you look at paintings in museums, etc., and you see beautiful blue robes or portraits, it was from people of great wealth. It was from a country. It was from the church, but it was almost the same price as gold. I mean, it was very, very, very expensive. And if you want to use lapis, this is a good way to use lapis. But if you wanted something really quite dark, then you could use the two synthetic alternatives, which are ultramarine or French ultramarine. This is about $1,000 a pound. If you use the other two, they're about $9 a pound. So there's a great difference between the two. And the French ultramarine and the ultramarine are quite beautiful. They're my favorite. But if you want to use lapis, this is certainly a way to use lapis, but it's more of a baby blue and not a striking blue. The stuff that you're seeing in museums, that would probably cost upwards of probably about $20,000 a kilo, $30,000 a kilo, because it starts with such a huge amount to make it so pure. And if you say, oh my God, it's beautiful, it is beautiful. It's absolutely breathtaking. But you can get pretty close to that with the synthetics. I always figured nobody's going to want to pay $300 or $400 for a tube. So the next one is Kyanite. And actually, the next one is Sugilite. So Sugilite it's going to granulate. It's also going to have a lot of the mica material in it. So as this dries and I'll move the paper around, you'll see it kind of sparkle a little bit. Everybody likes that. This is Payne's Gray. I've seen some artists use Payne's Gray similar to how they would use neutral tint. I don't know if any of you use it that way. In fact, we could save a little bit and maybe use some of that on the Pyro Scarlet to see how it does. And so Lapis, red jasper, Sugilite, and this is Payne's Gray. The next will be Sedona. So Sedona. What do you think that one is? Any ideas? It has, so here in front of me, it's a little bit different than what you're seeing on, at least what I'm seeing on my screen. There's a slight reddish warmth to it here. It's certainly granulating. It's moon glow. So this is moon glow. So on the website, if you wanted to, you could actually go, and if it's not there, I can make sure it gets there. You can see all of the dot cards that different artists use. And I believe, and if not so, I can make it so that it does it. I'll test it myself today. You can sort to see how many use a certain color. I know quite a few use Piemontite. Quite a few, for example, use Jadeite. There's some very, very popular ones that are used. So this is Piemontite. Piemontite. And put the Piemontite next to the Sedona. This is a little bit darker than Sedona. So now that Sugilite is starting to dry. So Stella says, I can understand why Rajat uses all the granulating pigments as he loves expressing the texture of the object in nature. Absolutely. I think I'll show that tomorrow. I'll make sure I ask him that as well. Trying to show you the kind of the sparkles in that. It's not really picking it up, but it's, I can see them here in front of me. So I'll move this over. Okay, so this one was Piemontite. Piemontite. And the next one is Minnesota Pipestone. So Minnesota pipestone. So I have a little bit of paper right here. So I'm going to try something real quick. This. It's beautiful. This is Pyrrole Scarlet. Pyrrole Scarlet. What I wanted to do with it, I'll draw it out on another piece of paper as well. What I wanted to do is just add some of the Payne's Gray. So that is the Payne's Gray with the Pyrrole Scarlet. Some more of the Payne's Gray. So kind of a little bit like a neutral tint. So that is the Payne's Gray. It's a lot. So Reba, I'm going to ask. I'll send Rajat a message, see if if his demo tomorrow. It's only going to be about a half an hour long, where he'll do a walk. I'm sure he will. Okay. Pearls are beautiful. I think when we've looked at them, because we've looked at them quite a bit, I would say the perylines, I'll put another color and that'll come into focus. The perylines are not quite as bright, still bright, but not quite as bright. Pearls just are really bright. Do you have any questions so far or comments? Have any of you used more than two of the permit tuck colors? Mark, have you used more than two of them?
Yeah, my favorite at the moment is jadeite. I think
Jadeite.
yeah, that granulates is really great. And I've been working with Sugilite as well.
With Sugilite as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how do you use the jadeite?
mostly landscape, but more abstract, so you can get that nice granulation.
Awesome. You have paintings behind you?
Yeah, I've got one actually.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Is that moon glow in the center, or is that like an ultramarine violet?
Let me look. Go back here. Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, some moon glow in the clouds, and
Awesome.
then moon glow
Right
with the trees.
That's very neat. Very neat. It's a very popular color. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
So thank you.
So now we're looking at tiger's eye. And bloodstone. Bloodstone's a hematite. Hematite means blood. That's where we have hemoglobin. It's cobalt teal blue. That's a very popular color. Dioxide. Kyanite. So what's that? Interesting.
Rosita. Anna Marie would like to know if Mark also used the watercolor sticks for the highly saturated areas of that painting.
You're asking Mark that?
Yeah, Anna
Okay.
Marie is.
Mark, did you hear
Okay.
that question? Mark to everyone, thanks. Using glazing to get the deep blue. So he says used a glazing to get that deep blue hue.
Yeah. But also use the sticks occasionally as well.
Okay, so we're gonna start with tiger's eye, bloodstone. So we start with tiger's eye. There we go. So the Primitex, when Dan Smith and I would talk, we both have a passion for things that are made with human hands, whether it's leather works or stone works. There's a beauty in that. I think there's a beauty in all types of art, and when it's made with it's very intimate. It's very passionate. So we would talk about the American Indians, both the Inuits that would live along the coast, and also the Plains Indians. And for most of us, we can see totem poles, etc., along the coast. They're very long-lived. because there was so much fish and there's so much protein in fish, and it was readily available. Those peoples had more time to do art. There's a lot more artwork, and it lasted longer. The Plains Indians were always on the move. They would follow where the animals were, etc. And while they would have paintings on, on their horses or their ponies, and maybe on, on their faces, ponies and people don't last. But there's a beauty there, and they would find those. They would get those colors by going to streams, and they would find iron oxide, so they would find hematites or ochres, etc. They would crush those. They would put those into an animal fat, and that's what you see when you see war paint, etc., on ponies or on faces. There's a beauty. I find a beauty in that, and so Dan and I would talk about that at length, and we thought, well, artists have this connectivity. We're all connected to each other at some way. And I think it would be very interesting for them to be able to paint the weights or use paints the same way somebody might have done it, 200, 300, 500, thousands of years ago. And that's why he came up with the Primatech. It means primitive technology, in that we're using very primitive materials, but we're processing them with modern machinery. So we can get to the same micron size, for example, all the time. We can get to the maximum amount of refraction or reflection from the crystal. So it's the same brightness all the time. And so that's what Primatech means. And that's kind of what we were thinking when we were developing this, is how do we touch back through time? How do we make that connection? Okay, so this was the tiger's eye, and the next one is the bloodstone. I love those questions. So this is the bloodstone. This one, so granted, it's really, really clear. If this were mummy bauxite, for example, it'd be much more red. This is going to be the cobalt teal. Cobalt teal is a very, very, very popular color. It is available in the stick. So you can have it different ways if you want. There it is in the stick form.
John, may I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Thanks. With the Primatech, you're working with natural products, and something like lapis lazuli or jadeite would not necessarily, even through, if you had a full strain of the mineral, it wouldn't be consistent pigmentation through the whole strain. So as a colorist, how do you deal with the variation that we naturally have in nature? Because as somebody who paints one painting, it doesn't matter if the pigment is different from one time to another. But when you're working as a professional creator of pigments, you want your batches to be similar over time. How do you deal with that challenge?
So from the dealing with the mineral, that's very easy for us to deal with the mineral, to get it to the same level of purity every time. That's extremely easy for us to do. The other part that you're talking about is the part that's much more difficult. It's always more difficult, because as an artist, what we want to make sure is we're giving the artist the same thing every time. So when they run out of, in the middle of a painting, they go from this one that they just finished this next one, it's the same. So there are times where we have to tint it slightly to make sure it matches, but it's always 100% that mineral where we have to make sure there's no variation between the color. Is sometimes we have to make sure that we tint it so it matches. It's the only way, because the purity is always there. It's not easy, but that's much more controllable for us. As you're saying, we can get the mineral, and sometimes it's at the top of the mine. We can get the mineral, and sometimes it's in the middle section. So there can be variation. We can always resolve the purity, because we would just keep on doing it till we get the purity we want. But to make sure we have absolute match on some of them, it has to be tinted slightly. The hematites, no. Tourmalines, no. But there are some that are they're just such a what's a good word to use it? There's such a fragile color to them. It's much more, it does take that. So that's a great question. Did that answer your question, Anna?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
I'd like to know, do a follow-up question and tell us more about the tinting process, but I don't know if you have time for that.
The tinting process is probably one I'm not going to share. Not that it's, I mean, it's kind of like Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, it's the secret sauce. Processing the Primatech by itself is really not an easy feat to begin with, just because I'm always asked by engineers. I love engineers. I mean, to talk to watercolorists, you're talking across doctors, lawyers, professional watercolorists, but there's such a flavor in the watercolorists from all different walks of life. So to me, it's always exciting to talk to them. And I've talked with some that are engineers, and they'll say, well, why don't you just use a pneumatic press? And you could do that whole process that's taken you a month. You could do that in 30 minutes. I say, yes, I could do that in 30 minutes, but I don't get granulated sugar, for example, that has this beautiful refraction quality. I get powdered sugar, which is deader than a doornail. So, I mean, there's this beautiful art about how you can cleave a crystal to get it down from this thing you can hold in your hand to 40 microns, which is about half the width of your hair. So I think there's art in everything. There's always this really awesome thing that all of us can do and just have fun with. This is Kyanite. So I know some of you have asked about Kyanite. So Lisa said, good question, Anna. This is Kyanite. So you'll notice lots of granulation. And when it comes to granulation, we're always going to say yes to whether something granulates, but it might be a very, very, very minute amount. But it's important for us, if there's any type of granulation, to say yes on the color chart. For example, for Misha that comes in, Misha is a realist artist. He wants no granulation. If he wants granulation, he wants to cause it, but not have it. So this is going to be the hematite genuine. So the hematite genuine, when it dries, it has kind of a yellowish tint to it. So as this one dries, I can kind of see it right in here right now. You kind of see it. You kind of see it right in here, and kind of right in here along the edges. So that's the hematite. It has a really secondary kind of color to it, which is really pretty. I mean, that's hematite. So what I did is I used the Kyanite, which was right here. So if you see some sparkle in the hematite I put down, there's no sparkle in hematite. It's because my brush has been corrupted by the Kyanite. I have some of the sparkles off the Kyanite. And I get asked that question when it comes to the luminescent colors. I would just keep a separate thing of water. So if I was, using my luminescence and I didn't want mica to get into anything, I would just keep it separated. But if it doesn't matter to you, then it doesn't matter. This one, we'll put next to it. It's the hematite. Is the hematite burnt scarlet. So hematite, burnt scarlet. Kind of the longer this goes, the more you can see it granulating. And this one will be the same. Hematites are really good granulating colors. This one is going to be I think it'll be interesting to ask Rajat how he mixes his Primatech colors. There we go. That is zoisite. Zoisite. So Lisa says, I try to match Primatech to the coats of my kitties. All right. So we have 3 left. 3 of these colors left. It's amazing how fast this year has gone. Christmas pretty soon. It's 4 balls. So we do Mayan Blue. And Mayan Blue is called Mayan Blue because it's made in the same way that the Mayans made their blue. So it's indigo infused into clay. The other Mayan colors we have are made very similar, but they were not used by the Mayans, so they don't have any history. The Mayan Blue Genuine has a history. That's why it's part of the Primatech and the other Mayans are not. Stella says, how important is the pigment to be so exact with every batch for the watercolor artist? The beauty of watercolor is the unpredictability, the spontaneity. Watercolor is music, movement of the water and color, freedom and emotion. I think the neat thing about watercolor is once you have the color yourself, it really becomes how much exactly that, what you want to do with it. I think that's been one of the major important for me, the part which is so important is giving the power of the color to the artist. So how much water do you want to add? What do you want to do with it? That's the whole process I think about learning watercolors is that proportion. You know, it's if you take the ultramarine blue, there's times I get questions, why is my ultramarine blue granulating so much? And it will absolutely granulate a lot depending on how much water you use, all the way to the point where you can actually undo the process of how we put the paint together. And that's really kind of neat. It just shows the amount of control that the artist has within this medium. Anna, what's the color blue you have on the painting behind your shoulder? What blues are you using there? Those are really pretty. Behind your shoulder on the painting, which blues are you using? You can't hear?
I can't
Okay.
unmute, sorry. That is
That's-
ultramarine, and that's the triad scheme. There's only 3 pigments in this color.
That's really pretty.
All ultramarine with really good granulation here.
That's very pretty.
It's a stunning color.
It is ultramarine. People ask me, what's your favorite color, John? I always say ultramarine. I know it's kind of a basic color, but to me, it's a very beautiful color. And I would go either way. I'd go French ultramarine or ultramarine. I would go either way because I just find it to be really, really pretty. And then the moon glow that Mark's using also is a very, very pretty color. But my favorite has to be the ultramarine for sure. Okay, this is going to be the Yavapai. Yavapai is the color of the Grand Canyon. So for the Yavapai and the Sedona, it came from me visiting my father. I live in Washington. My father was in Arizona, and I would try to visit him. There was a time when he was not doing well, so I would visit him every 2 weeks. Sometimes it came to every other week, and sometimes people only take so. My father found it very hard to be with somebody for a long period of time because he was very tired. So I would go out, and he lived very close to Sedona, and he lived very close to the Grand Canyon. So I would just go out and walk in the hills. And I picked up the Yavapai when I was close to Grand Canyon. I picked up the Sedona when I was in Red Rock country. And I brought those back to Ron, my chemist, and we played with them, and we came up with those 2 colors. So this is Yavapai. This is the color of the Grand Canyon. This is permanent orange, and people ask about the permanent orange, the permanent green. And when we first started with our watercolors, almost 30 years ago, a company that was doing really well and had very nice colors. They had very nice colors. I think some of you use some of their colors, and they have very nice colors. Was Windsor Newton. And so we use that naming convention. That's where we got the permanence. It was just, and then I think it's like anybody that grows, we came into our own. We started developing all our own colors. That's a very pretty color. That's permanent orange. And the last color, this might be a good one to ask Rajat about. I don't know if any of you use it. It's Purprite. Purprite's really kind of very interesting color. It's not Purprite. Sugilite. But I'm showing the Sugilite. I can't find my Purprite. That here in front of me is a beautiful Purp. This is actually Sugilite. This camera wants to make it black, but it's not black. It's anything but black. It's a really pretty mineral. So this one is going to be Purprite. Purprite is a manganese. And the neat thing about the mineral is that you can see it on the it's just, it'll oxidize on the outside of the mineral, which makes it really kind of interesting. I think it makes it really pretty. So let me show you what it looks like. This is Purp. Show you what we did today. So we have the Mayan, we have the Yavapai, the permanent orange, and this is the Purp. And then earlier, these are the ones we did earlier. These are earlier colors. So Sugilite are the outside. And then, so these are all of Rajat's colors. Here's our Lapis. Here's our Pyral Scarlet. Here's our Moon Glow. So these are all the colors that he uses way more colors. These are just on his dot card. So he may use these, he may not use these tomorrow. He can use whatever colors he wants to use to do his paintings. So there we go. There we go. Can you put Moon Glow next to that? Rebo, which one? I absolutely can. Which one do you want to put Moon Glow next to? Next to Purp? Maybe it's next to this Purp. I can do that. So Purp. Moon Glow. So there's our Purp, and there's our Moon Glow. I can put out the Purp a little bit more. You're very welcome. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Let me bring this camera up. Thank you. Oh, look, I'm masked again. Thank you very much. Thank you for you make my Thursdays and Fridays really incredible. Thank you. And I love questions. Whether you're going to write the question down or talk, I love questions. Rajat certainly will love the questions tomorrow. So anything you might have wanted to know, go ahead and ask him. He's extremely friendly. I think the majority of all the ambassadors, if not all of them, are teachers. So they love questions. They love questions. So with that, Anna, Mark, Giovanni, Elisa, thank you. Hello, Gabriel. Didn't hear you today. Good to see you down there. Thank you all for joining today. Bye-bye. And if you're here, I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.